Hey, it is your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in. We're trying out a new live here on the channel. We're still getting the hang of it. We just were picking up on the previous live. I was hoping to go for maybe another 55 minutes or so and then try to get some announcements because I have had a lot of requests to do the live and do the interactive with like some Q&A. And to tell you the truth, I am not sure of other people's like time zones and things like that, or if people can even see me. So I wanted to pick up and zoom in a little bit more on the cause that creates the effect. Hey, Melissa. Okay, cool. I'm glad you can see me. I want to talk more about that like really uneven dynamic where it's like people feel like really sort of punchy or punched out or sort of like really combative as a result of the relationship. Because one of the, I would say, after effects or symptoms of being in this relationship is feeling that you are becoming very combative. Having to be fighting or argumentative or sort of defending yourself all the time, defending and justifying yourself for who you are, why you are, the way you scoop up your rice, the way you want to do something, your type of communication. I mean, anything is up for grabs. It's sort of like, I was watching this video and they have like, there was a guy who was camping and he saw this big sign where like everybody had shot BBs at it. It was like, I don't know, we call like just a sign where people would like take shots at it. So I kind of feel like part of that, Melissa, that you might saying, yes, it's like part of your growth journey is that like realizing that part of that, sort of combative, and then maybe like the jealousy that they sort of set up is that jealous enviness, and so you don't realize you're not able to live and see the gratitude of what you have and like have that validated. So it's the deprivation of empathy and being able to validate you for who you are, and especially like in your great points, like giving you the positive, back to you, like, oh my God, you look so good today, or it's so good to see you, how you doing, or how is your day, or like they're not able to sort of put you first, or like you're not able to be, they're not able to sort of be present or be with you, sort of be there. I mean, we're, in other words, and then that jealousy then turns into rage and resentment because it's not worked out, and it's used as sort of a power play, or you just are wondering, am I, where are you? You're always sort of guessing where you stand in the relationship, and then you just want things to be normal, but then things get out of step. There becomes like a third wheel that you didn't even create or want, but they sort of almost act and project as if you are the creation of the wrench or the third wheel in the problem. And you're not a third wheel. They're making them and projecting it to be unhinged as so. It's like to make you fall off, but yet they still want you on, so yeah, they're it's just how they feel, and then that jealousy and turns into rage, and then it's never usually worked out. It's usually just held onto and like carried on a day-to-day basis, and like people go to work like that, and then they want to have a way to, oh, Joanne, I'm so glad you guys, because I think something happened, like I wanted to go for like maybe another like 55 minutes or something like that, and so you can guys can get sort of a refresh sort of way to start out this live on a Friday. So I'm trying to get these on. I'm not sure if they're launching or how to really get these up, but we'll learn, gang. It has been such a busy week. But yeah, it's like, it's being in a soap opera, and it goes from thrill and exhilaration from that little bit of reinforcement, which should be kind of an all the time thing. Not that everything is hunky-dory, a walk and sing song of the tulips, but you should have a fair degree amount of that in the relationship. You should be able to feel and enjoy that, and be able to be rewarded in that fun, way that a relationship is supposed to be, or secure, or stable, or whatever it is it's about. I mean, this, especially if it's like young romance, it's hard to know where to turn and how to decide, and not to feel that you have lost, or that you're defeated, or that you're just left open wound, and you still want to make it with this person. Um, but it's hard, because then you feel that you have all these hopes and wishes and ambitions, so you become sort of entangled with that relationship, and sort of always want it to work out. So people will endure a lot of pain for that relationship. In other words, they will develop a high tolerance for pain for a lot of that triangulation, and sort of that jealousy, especially that jealousy, rage, and resentment triangle that happens, especially in young romance, and even people as they get older. I have to grab 7 Up. It's I have to wet the whistle, as they say. Especially if they have played with your mind, that you have to really understand that as a statement. As in other words, they have played with your mind where you have not been able to play. So it's like there weren't two kids in the sandbox. There was them throwing sand at you, and you didn't realize that maybe you were playing, but you weren't even included. So there's a sort of an exclusive. So they tend to be very exclusive in creating a sort of division, like a us versus them, that they create. Um, just for you to engage in it. You don't realize that you're engaging in this, especially in the beginning. You get conditioned to do it exactly like Dwayne Outdoors is saying, conditioned to always be that way. So you're not able to become aware of what's happening, and then say, wow, like this is not fair, or this is not what I am opting in for. For that, they always give that exclusion, like as if there's a divisiveness, meaning they're trying to get leverage over you, which is known as power or control. So then people realize that they, then feel that they might have a positive aspect of the relationship, which there's no denying that of the positive. But getting out of that whole jealousy, and that staying in that sort of pocket of the relationship, which is that fear, obligation, and guilt. And a lot of people get a payoff from staying in that sort of segment of the relationship. Like really, really indirect, sort of nebulous conversation, sort of things always left hanging. There's always like one foot hanging out the window, and you're still trying to drive. I cannot believe one time when I was driving to a appointment, there was a gentleman in the car in front of me who was driving a car, and I was in a business suit. He was all slumped. I'm just going to add this, but he literally had his foot hanging out the driver's side window while he was driving. Like, I mean, that is a slumped down position. You do not need to engage in a relationship where you're sort of disempowered. You're just sort of, as if you are something you are not. And very controlling, and sort of creating as if they are trying to mold you, rather than you are molding of yourself, and acknowledged and validated right there. So because they're not able to engage in that positivity, for whatever reason, you can't live within that positive realm. In other words, you can't live and flow in that happy space. There's always that, the dagger in the heart. Like those people have those, there's always that sense of pain, and people then are ready for that twist, or what happened now? I just found out. I mean, so many viewers, but there's never a resolution to that, right? And then what is the payoff, like, from hanging out in, and living and existing in that zone? Oftentimes people are afraid to sort of redefine and remold themselves from the inside. Especially there's areas of them that were very significant but that were perhaps rejected. Perhaps a really important part of your life which can change things and turn things around, especially getting out of that apathy, or as if they're staying stuck in a rut, or not able to sort of pursue a certain life that they truly want, but they're afraid it's not going to lead them to the type of relationship like this. And so they are at a crossroads. And consider it like a wimp junction. You have to be able to be able to look at it from your strength and not being afraid that you don't have to cater to them as that supply dynamic anymore. Like, because oftentimes that's very rewarding. You've got a lot of positive reinforcement, from that. There's a lot of give and take. Um, but yeah, and not, and especially it becomes very negative, right? Especially when there's a lot of that degrading, which for some reason people do resort to that because they feel that that is how they are to be. So that is their free will. So if you really sort of give them the full space for them to be who they are and the way that they are, and they have their every right. So it's like, really, I feel, in understanding and healing is coming back to your human inalienable rights. So it's really like your constitution. And I believe there's a really good old snippet of that in the US Constitution, but coming back to your right of sort of being able to see things clearly and not being in a relationship dynamic that is dynamic, damaging, hurtful, neglectful, or whether it is withholding because of a lack of empathy. Meaning, someone who is narcissistic, they have an inability to acknowledge and validate other people's feelings, emotions, ideas, and perspectives, and really integrate them in the relationship. So we're talking about integration. So you can't even have an inner integration when you're in this relationship, because there's always a snarl. If you think of yourself kind of like some gears, there's always like a gear that is broken, like one little tooth of it is broken, and so there's some manipulation going on. So it's really understanding what is manipulation and what is like a fine demeanor for you, and really, really getting into the understanding of what it has manipulated and had power over you, and to accept that acknowledgement and not be afraid or fearful or looking at it in the face. So coming from a positive to a positive. So in other words, we need to get from a positive to a positive, and getting out of that negative thorn space for just a moment, like taking a time to see a rose as just a rose. Like, not that the thorns have been thread off, not that it was unfeeling or numb, but just to understand that the relationship has an essence, where there is a positive. So just allowing to be that before there was any harm, before there was any hurt, emotional slaps in the face, physical slaps in the face, whatever you had encountered, treat you right, like you're only on a need-to-know basis. Lots of times you feel something isn't right, but you can't quite put your finger on it, right? So in other words, that they just sort of treat you as if you're third class, and you're not third class. Like, that is the whole dynamic, which is the problem. They don't put terms and labels on you. You create terms and the essence of you. There's a big difference. Just because they have denied that, or they have not been able to engage in that, is you do not need to make that your problem. Like, allow them to be that way, but then to say, I don't engage in that sort of rough play or that sort of lifestyle. It might not then be, you read that, evaluate, that you then need to get, you are not third rate. So in other words, you then doing outdoors, you then move beyond that basement sort of, uh, I think people have used that, sort of they put you in the basement, the Cinderella story. I mean, I think we could all benefit from that story, understanding that you sort of are put in the basement as if you are third rate, like you're only given on a need to know basis. That's such a great way to put it, Join Outdoors. That is really a sweet, that is very true, because it's almost as if they have cherry picked, sliced and diced, and only, will display a certain information and just withholding of information. That is the covert narcissist problem. I think that a lot of people on the channel are faced with that. There's oftentimes just a general withholding, um, and there is, in other words, there's not an open and honest communication. And because if they don't have the time, because they just do not care, oftentimes they only see what they desire. So if they desire more and that takes up their time, then they're going to treat you as a third class, because they do not want to help you. They do not want, they do not, they're not engaging with your feelings and emotions at all. I mean, there is a even though it might seem that they're engaging, but they are not. So you have to like fully acknowledge the degree to which they are, like you said, are withholding a lot. That is deception, keeping you in the dark, wool over the eyes, whispering, at the wine cooler or wherever their cooler is, their water cooler, drinking water coolers, talking, just the problem with narcissist relationships is that of manipulation. There's too much manipulation. There's too many indirect type of communications, which is not fair. And I think at the heart of it, that is what a lot of people feel, but they kind of want to overcome that challenge, and they want to sort of take the challenge of that the narcissist presents them, and they want to continue to be sort of treated. They want it all, but then only given scraps, like Doing Outdoors is saying, and double standards, right? And so, yeah, just sort of maligning others, and sort of that, I mean, becomes very, very intensive. And it's because they feel that they are of a certain way, and you do not have to stand in the face of mistreatment. So oftentimes people have to understand what it feels like then to fully engage with standing up for yourself, and what that feels like. I mean, not that you leap into it all too much, but like physically, what does it feel like to own it when you say, I am creating the rules now. Now for the first time, so I'm at a new chapter, and I have a new quill pen. Get out the pen, feather. I don't know if you use ink, wet ink, invisible ink, but you got to get out the ink and say, scraps is where I have to draw the line, and it's, and you have to realize, okay, and to what degree do I have responsibility for this? And then looking at that square in the face and saying, okay, well, maybe, I, to them is not meeting what they desire. So even though I want to engage with them in a full, more manner, open and honest communication manner, they are not able, they are not capable. It's like trying to ask them to do something that they are not capable. In other words, like if you can equate it to outdoors, like in other words, for them to engage on that is, if I might create an analogy, is to say, let's put some shelter on this relationship. Like let's be together in this relationship, but they don't have a ladder. Like if you show up with a ladder and you're willing to go out, and in those moments, even when it's rough waters, you're still there, you're showing up, or you're at least engaging. They don't have the ladder, they don't have the ladder to do what you're trying to build with them. They don't have the emotional desire, physical desire. They just, because they want to keep, there's something about it. So we can just leave it at that. But a lot of people are like, they so want to understand the why, you know, and so you have to sort of look at it like that. In other words, so am I expecting them to have or treat me or engage in a way that they are not capable of, or I am not capable of? So you really have to acknowledge it in its full essence. But a lot of people, they're wanting that chapter to remain open for a long period of time. They're just really wanting that to be, ongoing. So it's very difficult to say, how is this going to go? How am I going to rewrite from myself now? To what degree am I writing my own rules and saying to this degree, this is getting intolerable, or for example, in a relationship, if you're trying to take it to the next level, if you're a fiance, or married. I mean, oftentimes these relationships here on the channel, for our folks who are, it's generally married or romantic, this is the main thing. So we're talking about the dynamic here of yourself and someone who you are romantic or in that sort of relationship. And so if you're not given all the information, how can you be empowered and have leverage? You're not. So, they're like, I've got some sort of push, pull, and, you're like, well, you're supposed to have a ladder. So they don't actually have the emotional tools. So you have to really get a visual and a real understanding and an acceptance and letting go. Like, and to what degree, when and how am I going to end that chapter? And accept it, and feeling a sense of gain from this. So it is in the positive. So you don't have to explain and justify whose others' ears need to hear it. For oftentimes a lot of people, what I find here on the channel is that they want to let somebody know the degree to which the harm has been caused to them. And they want retaliation or retribution. And oftentimes that retaliation or retribution is in a spot that cannot ever be resolved. Like, in other words, they're trying to engage them in a way that is only going to be really harmful, but they're trying to sort of get retribution in the wrong manner. You have to sort of realize and rebuild and retool in the proper direction. And what does that involve? In other words, where do you draw the line and seal the deal? In other words, if someone, someone who will talk to me and, there was some sort of cheating involved or something of that nature, or whatever the event was for you, have that in mind. And to what degree does that indeed cross a boundary for you that you need to say, when this is done, I'm now rewriting the new chapter, with ink, which means with commitment and understanding, this is where I draw the line. This is where I cannot engage in this manner at all. So it has to become a very clear-cut decision. So when things, need to break off or become at a new dimension. So looking at it as a gain, in other words, as a growth, as a building up. As some social workers, I think they always say, you should be going up. I think for some social workers. So whatever that means for each person, I think it's to understand that oftentimes the journey had become quite a meandering road, or to what degree or wherever it is. But sometimes people find themselves really squarely where they do not want to be, or it is very unpleasant. And correct the dysfunction, a new way of life. And oftentimes, like doing outdoors, it might be multi-generational that this is taught, and there might be a lot involved. So, and then going no contact can be difficult. So you have to really look square. And then, so when this happens to me outdoors, then what do I do? So as we're talking in the previous slide, so I hope you guys can hear me. So if A, so you doing outdoors, write the rules. If A, then B. And being very clear, and then being no matter what, and not in like a freak out mode, but just meaning in a very cool and calm, especially nowadays, calm is something. And for God's sake, there's coffee all over the place, or tea, or whatever it is you're drinking. But you have to really come and return to, in the privacy of your heart, in a calm place, and write that rule. If this, so the core event or behavior or whatever had transpired. So each person I know is unique. And of course it messes you up, and of course it messes your thinking up. And we were saying in the previous video, it plays with your thinking. So you need to say, wow, well, somebody else was playing with my thinking, and this, this was a scramble, and this became a uncomfortable way of life for you, and unconsciously you were sort of caught up in it, sort of for that process. It was like almost like a knee-jerk reaction. You couldn't really kind of come out of it. So now it's really saying, okay, now you're defining, and so shaping it from within, rather than them, setting it up on you. So you have to come back, rather than I, if doing outdoors, if A, then B, and then what does that mean? In other words, what action steps does that really look like for you? And then, even though it seems sort of like it's sort of broad, but for you, in other words, what draws the line for you? And that is intolerable. So for me, that means, fortunately, I have a choice to, and then grow and gain from this. And this for me moves on to, and then so moving up, in other words, what is the positive step? And knowing and owning and feeling and allowing that to grow and get you warmed up and enthusiastic again, so that you're not like stuck in that apathy, or like not doing, or that sort of meandering for too long. Thank you, Melanie Strickland. Yeah, I mean, I want to help you guys, come into the, you have to get back to that, because that is the deficit state. I really feel there's a deficit. I really feel, in sort of understanding this and unpacking this, that if you are in a relationship with a narcissist, you are sort of engaging in a deficit of empathy state. And what does that mean for you as the individual? What does that feel like? Does it feel like you just sort of following along? Does it feel like you being voiceless? Does it feel like you being small? Does it feel like you being lonely? Does it feel like you being unheard? Does it feel like you being undiscovered, or like your interests are not being validated? What does that really feel like? And then, looking at that and saying, that was the dynamic, but you have a free will now to then make a change and sort of look at it with strength. And then, so that you are no longer influenced from that negative background, and then being able to manage it and saying, okay, these different states that then are uncomfortable, but that you want to have. So in other words, well, then it oftentimes then affects people's ability to have intimacy with other relationships, or make a decision to be single for a while. And how long is that going to be? Or, oftentimes it can prevent intimacy with other relationships. And, it's, yeah, it's like you kind of, you feel that you kind of experience, you have to sort of get to a savoring, and savor of things, and allow things to sort of alchemize and become, you know, in a positive, and sort of become shaped by it, but you are shaped from it. In other words, sort of become crafted, becoming more, so that you're shaping your decisions, and sort of, if you need more information and you're not getting it from this individual, then you can't change them. Hey, Joshua Thomas. Um, yeah. So really, okay, we've got somebody here who, hey, Joshua Thomas, are you still? We got your hey. Just don't overlet everybody out, sir. Thank you. Right, and so people, I should see here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, right, you can't change them, but you still might need something from them, or there still might be something sort of, left undone for you. So, if there is, what information do you need, or where can you let things be and let things sort of, cauterize and heal, like an emotional cauterization. So, just like a physical wound, are you brave enough? Like, what is required for that cauterization to heal? And does it mean loving them just the way it is, or what else is required for you to have that full strength, or, resolve, and then be able to grow and move on, so you have to be the one to say, and enlarge and sort of make that space, which I talk about, that sort of getting into that space, which is a very welcoming space, a very limiting, a very welcoming and unlimiting and open sort of space. In other words, where you're then becoming that person that you are to become. You're to come out on the correct side of it. You're to come out the right way outside of it. In other words, what am I trying to say? You want to come out the right side of this. So I kind of feel like that then is getting you back in the power seat. So getting you back in the you are listened to seat. So like that gal was saying, where oftentimes there is a lot of jealousy or revenge, or like there's deception going on, and you are really in that angst state, you have to understand and accept to what degree are you going to be in that angst state, and what do you need to do to resolve and heal and accept completely, and to be very clean cut, like this is acceptable and this is not, and I'm okay with being different, and it's okay for me to think differently about things, because usually the narcissist, they will not be agreeable, and they will not be able to engage in a thought process or an attachment, because of an attachment disorder, which is usually part of their problem. And you get a lot of power play problems in these relationships, folks. You might find yourself driven crazy. You might find yourself in a whole big whopping, big of whop up, a whole big can of whoop ass is what, we're not supposed to swear, but yeah, and the recovery dates, are really important to rediscover yourself. And exactly, and to be that, and to say, damn, that's awesome, and to say, I am awesome, even because that cannot be reflected by someone who does not have empathy. They cannot have a positive response for you. Well, then they cannot, so that is, they cannot engage. There is an inability, there's a emotional disconnect. So it's just to say that is, and then self-care. And, I really talk about that. Like, how do you waken yourself up? Well, for one, I mean, look, and resensitize yourself, And I talk about like resensitizing yourself and like waking yourself up. This little thing was sent to me. It's like this beechwood brush, and it has like these cactus bristles. But when you do this on your arm, I mean, you feel alive. If because of this, I mean, it feels so amazing. And I had another one that I used, but oh, it's over there. But the bristles are not as coarse. Like, this thing is amazing. If you guys are feeling, you know, so like de-energized, like really do some things. Be courageous enough to say, I am waking myself up, and that is safe. I am, energizing myself, and that is safe. So I swear this is amazing. So other things that we do to resensitize yourself is like waking yourself to be feeling good, because you have to get a body into, you guys, we're not commenting about other people, and otherwise we're just going to we're gonna shut it down. So Joshua, if you can, we see you, hon. If you can just limit because other people are engaging. Can I get a thumbs up, Joshua? um, and yes, so and you guys, we're not about here about looking at bantering with each other. We're this is not about calling other people out in any sort of negative, okay? So right. Yeah, so we're not here to, okay, cool. Okay, awesome. So yeah. So getting into what is required, just like realizing what does it mean to get onto the other side of it? Like, what does it mean to heal or take it to the next dimension? We've been doing this channel for some time, and so you have to kind of look at it like a fine-tuned, very elaborate machine is the way I look at relationships. If you look at the intrapersonal dynamics, so when you talk about looking into and understanding what's happening within, that's intrapersonal. So that's where the strength has to begin, and enlarge and say, wow, like I am feeling magnificent, like I am awesome, like I feel this, and I am engaging in this, and I accept that feeling, and you're in that flow. Oftentimes you're not able and to live in that, you're and you feel dull, dulled down, or you're still in that deprived state. So you have to then fill yourself up, you have to fill your cup up first. So what does that mean for you taking on in your life? Does it mean you taking on an interest? Does it make you taking on a, what does it mean? Okay, I'm going to shut this down, and we're going to get into a new live or do this tomorrow. I think we'll schedule for tomorrow. Peace out, everybody. Have a beautiful evening.